Chapter 1131, Bring on the Divine Punishment. There was the sound of thunder. Lightning occasionally flashed within the thunderclouds. The entire Hakodate was in a state of panic. This was even more frightening than a typhoon. When Zaifu looked sadly at the sky. We were caught unprepared. He turned and waved, forming a void. He could no longer continue watching. He was not afraid of the lightning. Rather, he did not want Lu Shu to know that he was here. When Zaifu left, but he was not worried about Lu Shu. He knew that the outcome had been decided. Lu Shu lay in the remains of the mountain, feeling the flow of the celestial map in his body. The fifth level of nebula was almost fully lit up. Happiness, anger, sadness, fear, love, evil, and desire. The 7 levels of the celestial map had 7 different meanings. The first soul was corpse dog, the second was concealed arrow, the third was sparrow shade, the fourth was seizing thief, the fifth was non-toxic, the sixth was filth removal, and the seventh was smelly lung. This time, the new sword that had formed above the 5th level was probably non-toxic. Earlier, Lu Shu had been thinking about it. What kind of sword would non-toxic be? Corpse dog was strong, concealed arrow was fast, sparrow shade was present in large quantities, and seizing thief kept close to him. Rationally, he had all the swords he needed. The next moment, the 5th level of nebula spun and formed a complete galaxy. Then, a shadow appeared above the 7th star. Suddenly, he felt something in the Seal of Lands wildly moving about. He opened the Seal of Lands. The head-twisting gourd that he had left aside for a long time suddenly flew to the 5th level of nebula. The gourd swallowed the shadow in one bite. The surface of the flying sword within the gourd started to dissolve. The slender and beautiful flying sword sparkled among the stars. The purple gourd completely transformed. A group of stars started to burn, turning the purple gourd into the color of white jade. Lu Shu could not understand. Why had the gourd flown it? Furthermore, it seemed as if it was supposed to be there. Back then, when the gourd had continuously been absorbing his celestial powers to nurture itself, Lu Shu had thought that it needed power. Lu Shu had also considered why the gourd did not absorb spirit chi. Later on, he felt that it was because celestial powers provided more strength. When he thought about it again, it did not seem to make much sense. The flying sword within the gourd had been obtained from a black market. Back then, Lu Shu had thought that the flying sword and the gourd were one entity. But there was a problem. After the gourd obtained the sword, not only was not unable to twist its head, it became more disobedient. It spent its time nurturing the sword. Back then, Lu Shu had still expected it to be useful one day. But it had only been used to protect him from lightning. Lu Shu said, "Xue Xingyu." Xue Xingyu, who was in the sky, suddenly seemed as if he could no longer resist. He lowered his head and flew to Lu Shu. Lu Shu could feel the troublesome gourd returning. Not only was Lu Shu happy that the head-twisting gourd had reappeared, he was even more happy that Xue Xingyu was unable to resist his head-twisting gourd, even though he had just entered the Master Realm and had not suffered a lightning strike. No matter whether it was the Cheng-Ying sword or the seizing thief, although Lu Shu liked close combat, the head-twisting gourd was more aligned with his intentions. It was able to take the enemy by surprise. Lu Shu emerged from the remains and flew into the air. The fallen strands of the sparrow shade flew into the sky and flanked Lu Shu's sides. Suddenly, Xue Xingyu felt his arm hurt. Corpse dog and concealed arrow, which had been hidden in his sleeve, were no longer under his control. Instead, they flew back to Lu Shu. Lu Shu, who was surrounded by swords, was like a deity that had just arrived. Sakurai Yako stood in the barrier of light and looked at Lu Shu. She was in a daze. This was the person she liked. Sakurai Yako never avoided the fact that she admired Lu Shu's strength. It was a part of Lu Shu, right? Sakurai Yako suddenly laughed. She did not need to use her life to protect Lu Shu. She liked the feeling of being protected, not protecting others as the leader of the collection of gods. If she could stay at home, cook, and wait for her husband to return, it would be the best for her. After a busy day, her husband would return and say, "I'm home." Just thinking about it made her happy. Wait. This was not the time to think about this. Sakurayeko turned red. Lu Shu floated in the sky. He looked up at the lightning. He smiled at Xue Xingyu. Let's hurry up and finish this fight. I still need to take the divine punishment. Of course, he could not take the divine punishment in the city. It was on a scale that Lu Shu had never seen before. Nie Ting had received the divine punishment twice, but it had never been this grand. If this divine punishment occurred in the city, all 310,000 civilians in Hakodate would probably die. Furthermore, Lu Shu was very interested in this divine punishment. He had 12,000 sword prototypes in the Sea of Qi and Snowy Mountain. If he had 12,000 lightning aura blades, even ordinary masters would be no match for him. Who dared to provoke someone with divine lightning aura blades? Xue Xingyu laughed coldly. Do you really think that I only have ouch? Xue Xingyu suddenly coughed out blood. He looked at the black sword in his chest. Lu Shu was dumbfounded as well. He saw Nie Ting, who had suddenly appeared behind Xue Xingyu. Nie Ting, who was dressed in black robes, seemed to have suddenly appeared with the lightning. Then, he took the chance while Xue Xingyu was preparing and Lu Shu was talking to pierce through Xue Xingyu's heart. For some reason, every time Nie Ting appeared, Lu Shu felt that, even masters seemed weak. Nie Ting calmly pushed Xue Xingyu aside. You speak too much nonsense. Xue Xingyu's corpse fell to the ground like a tattered cloth bag. Lu Shu was dumbfounded as he watched Shi Xuejin step out from a void. He curiously asked, "When did you come?" "Oh." Shi Xuejin smiled and said, "You Mingyu told us that you were in danger. We were having a discussion, but immediately rushed here." Having a discussion? So why do you have a green onion in your hand? Lu Shu was shocked. Shi Xuejin suddenly remembered that he had forgotten to put down the green onion when he and Nie Ting rushed here. On the other hand, Lu Shu suddenly realized that they had probably been eating when Yu Mingyu suddenly told them that Lu Shu was in danger. Furthermore, Lu Shu's enemy was a master. They did not even have the time to put down the green onions before rushing here. Furthermore, Nie Ting stole a life from him. Lu Shu did not even obtain the last distress points from Xue Xingyu. Of course, Lu Shu was not ungrateful. It was good enough that they had come here to save him. Chapter 1132, Whoever dared to defy me would die. After that moment of awkwardness, Shi Xuejin kept his green onion back in his invisible storage equipment. What a pity for the Master Realm's soul. If I had known, I should have brought Xiaoyu over. Lu Shu smiled. It's not a pity. He said that it was not a pity because he understood immediately when he placed the head-twisting gourd back in his position, that apart from twisting one's head and sending out flying daggers, the head-twisting gourd could keep one's soul. I reached here first, said Nie Ting, however, I felt that something was wrong as someone seemed to be hiding above us. However, he left. Could it be the mastermind? Lu Shu suspected. He did not realize that there was someone there. That person had managed to hide from Lu Shu. Perhaps, it was because Lu Shu was too engrossed in the battle that he did not take notice. Don't let your guard down, said Nie Ting. Sometimes, friends were like so. Perhaps your blood-related relatives disappointed you, but your friend had never disappointed you before. Lu Shu thought about this question. Why did this happen? He finally figured it out in the end. One's relatives were destined to be one's relatives the moment one was born. One did not have the power to choose one's own relatives. However, one's friends were chosen by one. Lu Shu said, wait for me for a minute, I am going to receive the divine punishment in the sea. Lu Shu had waited for the lightning for a long time. However, he could not tell Nieting that, or Nieting would make a joke out of it if he thought that Lu Shu liked to be struck by lightning. However, before Lu Shu could move, he saw Shi Xuejin wave to the sky. Disperse. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. Then, Lu Shu saw the thunder clouds disperse from the sky. What about the 12,000 lightning aura blade? What about the claim to be the man who received the divine punishment? Lu Shu pulled Shi Xuejin's arms. Wait a minute. Why did you disperse the clouds? Get them back for me. Shi Xuejin was dumbstruck. From Shi Xuejin's distress, plus 666. At this moment, both Lu Shu and Shi Xuejin started to question their lives. Lu Shu suddenly recalled that Shi Xuejin had the ability to disperse the divine punishment. However, it was the first time Shi Xuejin was told to call the divine punishment back. How was he going to do so? However, at this moment, the thunder clouds which were in the midst of dispersing suddenly gathered back. Shi Xuejin, Nieting, and Lu Shu were dumbstruck. Nieting and Lu Shu looked at Shi Xuejin. You called them back? I didn't. Shi Xuejin felt very wronged. Everyone was shocked. Even Shi Xuejin was unable to disperse this divine punishment. Nieting's expression became strange as he looked at Lu Shu. Was it because Lu Shu was too powerful such that heaven had to give Lu Shu a lightning strike? Lu Shu took a deep breath and flew towards Sakurai Yako. With a layer of light in between them, Lu Shu said, "Wait for me here." All right. Sakurai Yako nodded vigorously. Lu Shu flew towards the sea. The residents of Hakodate saw how the thunder cloud moved with Lu Shu. When Lu Shu flew towards the sea, it moved towards the sea too. That scene was extremely terrifying but made one respect Lu Shu too. He feels like the legendary Takamikazuchi one, someone exclaimed. He is much more good-looking than Takamikazuchi. You saw Takamikazuchi before? No. At this moment, some people really thought that Lu Shu was the god in the legends. When one was so powerful that it was beyond imagination, any ordinary person would view one as a god. Meanwhile, Lu Shu's reputation in Japan was not only based on his capability but also his cruelty. In the chaotic incident in the collection of gods previously, Lu Shu had killed too many people. Lu Shu reached the sea and stopped only when he confirmed that he would not disrupt the cities humans were living in. He looked up. In fact, he was worried because he felt the stubborn will of the heaven in the thunder clouds. It was as though his mission to alter one's fate was the biggest challenge to the will of the heavens. Therefore, he definitely had to overcome this challenge. At that instant, a bolt of lightning struck. From afar, it looked like a bent knife which struck Lu Shu cruelly. Lu Shu's sparrow shade interweaved continuously and formed the first line of protection above his head. After the first bolt of lightning, his sparrow shade went out of control. Lu Shu put them back into the celestial map and took out the seizing thief. The second bolt of lightning was blocked by the seizing thief. The third bolt of lightning was blocked by both the concealed arrow and the corpse dog. For the fourth bolt of lightning, Lu Shu raised his gourd to the sky. The flying sword from the gourd no longer hid and shot towards the sky directly, cutting the lightning bolt into half. In order to become a master, one had to have a firm intention and one's own laws. That was the most determined belief of practitioners, and without this belief, they could not go against the heavenly law. The lightning bolt shot out from the center of the sky. Rain fell from the thunder cloud that was sliced into half, hitting Lu Shu's body. The bolts of lightning entered Lu Shu's sea of qi and drenched every sword prototype. Anyone who opposes us would die eventually. That is the law, said Lu Shu calmly. At the next moment, he dashed towards the thunder clouds. There were no more lightning bolts from the thunder clouds. Instead, a circular path was made for Lu Shu, as though the heavens gave way to him. Lu Shu's figure appeared from the lightning bolts. The stars above his head was glistening. Lu Shu felt extremely happy at this moment. So this was the new world. Sakurai Yako smiled as she looked at what happened from afar. In the sea, even the thunder clouds had to give way to her crush. When the young man stood on the thunder clouds, the clouds finally began to disperse. Nie Ting and Shi Xuejin looked at each other. Nie Ting suddenly said, "Do you still remember what I used to suspect?" "Yes, I remember I said that he could only destroy the atmosphere but not the world," Shi Xuejin sighed. "Looks like my judgments are wrong." At this moment, Lu Shu had flown back to where Sakurai Yako was. He said, "Come out, nobody can hurt you anymore." Sakurai Yako hesitated for a few seconds before looking at the barrier of light. "I can't." Lu Shu was speechless. At this moment, Lu Shu thought he heard Wen Zaifu's boast laughter. He had already figured out Wen Zaifu's intention of sending the magical weapon. He probably had already guessed that someone would try to hurt Sakurai Yako and gave her a magical weapon for her to defend herself. However, being a good guy was not Wen Zaifu's character. He would definitely do something that annoyed Lu Shu, for example, the barrier of light. Perhaps there was something wrong with the demon in the dagger too. Chapter 1133, Secret Meeting. Wen Zaifu had already left. However, the magical weapon he had left behind became a problem for Lu Shu. This made Lu Shu very annoyed. By right, he should owe Wen Zaifu a favor as, after all, without Wen Zaifu's backhanded tactics, Sakurai Yako would have probably already died. However, Wen Zaifu purposely grossed everyone out as though he did not want them to thank him. Lu Shu was thinking if Wen Zaifu already knew who was targeting him, even if he did not know the specific details. Wen Zaifu still had more intelligence information gathered and that was why he used those tactics. However, now, where should they go to ask? As Lu Shu stood outside the shield of light and was at a loss of what to do, his mobile phone started ringing in his pocket. When he took it out to check, he saw Wen Zaifu's message. "Take care of yourself, I am returning to the Luniverse. Look for me when you are free. I will look for you when I am free too. What should we eat the next time we meet? Or where should we go? Is the plum jade pendant giving you a headache?" When Zaifu talked to himself and was able to make out an entire conversation. Yet Lu Shu did not have the time and effort to worry about that. When he saw the message, he immediately called back, but Wen Zaifu had already shut off his mobile phone. Wen Zaifu left and nobody knew where he went. Lu Shu wanted to ask Wen Zaifu if he had already figured out something. That was because he initially wanted to return to the Luniverse to kill Duanmu Huangqi. Now that he had attained the Master Realm and Lu Xiaoyu had obtained 2 souls of Masters, Duanmu Huangqi should be the person who was worried about his safety and not Lu Shu. However, Lu Shu suddenly realized that Duanmu Huangqi was merely a pawn. Be it being a pawn with other parties' awareness or being fooled unknowingly, Lu Shu should face the culprit instead of Duanmu Huangqi. Duanmu Huangqi had to die. When his ambitions burned, everyone else would die together with him. However, what if Duanmu Huangqi was killed? The passageway between the Earth and the Luniverse would probably have to be opened completely. Lu Shu was not out to find him because he wanted to kill him, but he could not remain as a coward on Earth. Lu Shu felt that if the passageways on Earth and the Luniverse could be completely sealed up and they each minded their own business, he would be glad to not return to the Luniverse anymore in his life. Yet now the most important thing was, how should he open the plum jade pendant? At this moment, Yu Mingyu rushed over. Yu Mingyu, Lu Shu and Sakurai Yako all turned to look at Shi Xuejin. Shi Xuejin was stunned for a moment before he said, "Why are you guys looking at me?" "You are the most well-read person in the heavenly network," said Lu Shu. "You don't know what to do too?" Shi Xuejin thought about it. "I don't know what to do either. Why don't I eat some green onions?" Lu Shu was speechless. Yu Mingyu was speechless. Nie Ting was speechless. Why was he planning to eat green onions? So what did he mean? Eating green onions helps to raise one's IQ. Shi Xuejin stood in front of the shield of light gloomily for a long while before he said in a serious tone, "The Earth is still falling behind in terms of making new weapons. In a short span of time, people cannot just figure out what the underlying principles are behind the shield of light. It feels as though it is an independent law." Lu Shu felt gloomy too. The biggest difference between the Earth and the Luniverse was that technology was more advanced on Earth, but the training culture of the Luniverse had reached the peak. There was no experts in making new weapons on Earth. Ka. As this sound was heard, Lu Shu and Shi Xuejin turned around and saw Nie Ting holding a black sword. With a strike, he made a cut on the shield of light. The crack continuously enlarged, and accompanying Nie Ting's calm expression, the scene looked extremely creepy. Xue Xingyu was unable to break open that shield in a short period of time. However, since he had been hitting it for a long time, and since Nie Ting was more powerful than Xue Xingyu, he managed to break it open in one strike. Nie Ting's calm expression was as though he was mocking Shi Xuejin and Lu Shu silently. Wasn't it done after it was broken apart? Before anyone could react, Sakurai Yako hugged Lu Shu, causing Lu Shu to be at a loss of where to put his hands. Sakurai Yako whispered to Lu Shu, thank you for saving me." However, Sakurai Yako's hug did not last for long. To Shi Xuejin, it was like a touch-and-go gesture. Shi Xuejin looked at Nie Ting. "Are there any other practitioners' organizations who have female leaders? Send him over to take a look." Nie Ting glared at Shi Xuejin. "Not for now, talk about it in the future." Until now, Lu Shu had visited two top-ranked practitioners' organizations with female leaders, the deities and the collection of gods. There seemed to be no exceptions. What on earth was happening? Shi Xuejin had a premonition that the ninth heavenly king would become a problem for the world of practitioners. Some people were already very displeased with the heavenly network since a while ago but was not daring to say it. However, they were displeased because the ninth heavenly king and heavenly king Li Xiao stirred up so many things. Yet now, things were different. The current ninth heavenly king was almost abducted by other leaders anywhere he went. This felt as though he entered another realm. If the relationship with the external organizations was like this, everyone felt worried. At this moment, Sakurai Yako suddenly said to Shi Xuejin and Nie Ting, "Can I use the identity of the leader of the collection of gods to hold a secret meeting with the two of you?" Nie Ting and Shi Xuejin were stunned for a moment. Why did she suddenly become so serious? Nie Ting said after thinking, "Sure." The meeting location was at the Hakodate office of the collection of gods. The collection of gods took merely 10 minutes to kick everyone out of the office. Yu Mingyu even cleared away all cameras and recording devices. Lu Shu and Yu Mingyu stood in the corridors outside the meeting room and chatted. What do you think they are discussing? Why can't I, the ninth heavenly king, join? Yu Mingyu said, I don't know either. If you don't know, how would I know? Have you ever met a slave owner before? Asked Lu Shu. No, Yu Mingyu lied through his teeth. He suddenly asked, do you really not know how to take in slaves? Lu Shu's hair stood up immediately. I really don't know. Yu Mingyu looked sympathetic. Then, the door of the meeting room was opened. Lu Shu and Yu Mingyu looked at each other. They did not expect the meeting to end so quickly. However, Lu Shu and Yu Mingyu realized that Shi Xuejin and Nie Ting's expressions looked weird. Chapter 1134, Foreign Member of the Heavenly Network, Sakurai Yako. In reality, this secret meeting was not meant to hide the truth from Lu Shu. However, if Lu Shu was at the meeting, Sakurai Yako would be too embarrassed to speak. To Nie Ting and Shi Xuejin's surprise, Sakurai Yako only discussed one issue at the secret meeting. She wanted to join the Heavenly Network and become a foreign Heavenly King of the Heavenly Network. Sakurai Yako was very polite when she brought this up. I don't need to be a Heavenly King. I'm fine with being an ordinary member. Nie Ting and Shi Xuejin were dumbfounded. Was this possible? This was too much. In reality, Sakurai Yeiko had wanted to do this for a long time. Even Motegi Toshimitsu had a feeling that this would happen. Sakurai Yeiko had asked her several times about what policies Motegi Toshimitsu would implement to deal with other organizations. Would she be radical or conservative? How would she treat the collection of gods? Would she be tolerant or strict? Motegi Toshimitsu felt that if Sakurai Yeiko did not plan on leaving, she would not have such plans. But was Sakurai Yeiko planning to abandon the collection of gods and go to the heavenly network for Lu Shu? But Nie Ting and Shi Xuejin were thinking of something else. The collection of gods' attitude towards other organizations was their favorite. All they had to do was to take care of themselves. They did not aim to contribute much to the world. It was good enough that they did not cause more trouble. This was a change that had occurred after Sakurai Yeiko completely controlled the collection of gods. It might be different with a new leader. Furthermore, Sakurai Yeiko's position in the collection of gods was very high. If another leader stepped up, a faction of the collection of gods might not be satisfied. There would be internal strife within the collection of gods once again. But this was not the main concern of Nie Ting and Shi Xuejin. It was very hard for them to discuss such practical affairs with a pure, young girl. Nie Ting was concerned about the overall situation as the leader of the heavenly network, but Sakurai Yeiko did not seem to have any practical aims. Regarding the long-lasting political stability within an organization, others could be headstrong, but could Nie Ting do the same? Others might feel that he was cold when he considered this situation, but if Nie Ting did this to return a favor without thinking it through, he would no longer be Nie Ting. All of these decisions might affect the distant future of the organization. There were times when Shi Xuejin felt sorry for Nie Ting. He knew that Nie Ting had wanted someone else to be the leader of the heavenly network. It was not that Nie Ting felt that he was incompetent. He felt that he was more suitable as an invincible assassin. Like Zhang Weiyu and Lu Yizhou, their responsibilities were not the life that they most desired. Now was the time they could truly fulfill their potential. But Nie Ting had no choice. He had considered Chen Bailey and Lu Shu, but they were not quite suitable. Chen Bailey was aloof from the affairs of the world. If Lu Shu controlled the heavenly network might cause too much mischief. Nie Ting asked, "Are you planning to return to China with us?" Sakurai Yeiko smiled and said, "No. I just hope that it will be easier for me to go there in the future." She had said so, but everyone knew that if Sakurai Yeiko wanted to visit China, all she had to do was ask. Everyone would welcome her. They all knew that Sakurai Yeiko was giving herself a possibility. Sakurai Yeiko smiled, "Perhaps one day, when everything here is settled, I will go there to live permanently. Will you welcome me?" Nie Ting smiled. "You are welcome. Why not?" If Sakurai Yeiko became a permanent resident in China, it would not be the responsibility of the heavenly network. It would be Lu Shu's responsibility. It was up to them to think about it. We do not understand the world of young people. When Nie Ting said, "You are welcome," this meant that Sakurai Yeiko had secretly joined the heavenly network. But Nie Ting would not directly give Sakurai Yeiko the identity of a heavenly king. She would be an ordinary member. When the door of the meeting room opened, Lu Shu asked curiously, "What did you talk about inside? Tell me." Shi Xuejin and Nie Ting smiled, but did not speak. They were not willing to tell him. Nie Ting stepped into a void. Shi Xuejin was about to leave when he was pulled back by Lu Shu. Shi Xuejin was puzzled. "Are you bullying me? Why didn't you stop Nie Ting?" "Does it matter? Tell me what you talked about inside," said Lu Shu. He did not have a kind expression on his face. "Ahem, it's fine if I tell you," said Sakurai Yeiko. Sakurai Yeiko has secretly joined the heavenly network. Lu Shu gasped in shock. This was major news. "You agreed? Are y'all crazy?" Sure, Shuejin was unhappy. Hey, I am your senior. Can you be more respectful when you speak? Lu Shu paused for 2 seconds. Are you crazy? Everything I say to you is meaningless. As Sure Shuejin spoke, he brushed away Lu Shu's hand. He turned and stepped into a void. Sakurai Yako stepped out of the meeting room looking embarrassed. She smiled at Lu Shu. Lu Shu-kun, we will be colleagues in the future. I look forward to working with you. I will find some time to look for you. Sakurai Yako had not decided to become a permanent resident in China. Instead, she would stay in the collection of gods. Even Sakurai Yako had not thought about how she would interact with Lu Shu. She knew that Lu Shu was more touched than happy. To Sakurai Yako, Lu Shu was like a hero who would appear as promised when she was in danger. But you could not say that the hero loved whoever he saved. Sakurai Yako felt that they still had a lot of time. There were countless possibilities. She was not afraid and would continue waiting. However, she would not just sit and wait and do nothing either. Furthermore, it was fine even if she could not wait. Sakurai Yako felt that she could live in those beautiful moments. Lu Shu-kun, can you accompany me to Hakodate Mountain again? Sakurai Yako asked. That was the place where Lu Shu had saved her. The two of them stood on Hakodate Mountain. The sea was in the distance. The waves crashed against the shore in the starlight. Lu Shu-kun, we will be able to live for a long time, right? Sakurai Yako smiled. Yes. Lu Shu nodded his head. A rank 1 has a lifespan of 800 years. But I think that you will be able to advance to the Master Realm. Sakurai Yako happily said, I will work hard to advance to the Master Realm. That way, I will be able to accompany you for a longer time. Lu Shu was dumbfounded. On the other hand, the young girl seemed to have revealed her thoughts and ran away. Lu Shu had never imagined this. Goodbye. But it was as if they would meet each other again one day. For some reason, Lu Shu felt that the night sky was particularly vast and clear. Chapter 1135, Like a God. When Lu Shu returned to China, he did not use his new ability to create voids. After every master became a natural law, they would become a key that opened up voids. He flew back to Luo City. He wanted to think about a few things on the way. Lu Shu had told Yu Mingyu that no matter who had sent the slave owners, they would have to settle the conflict between them with strength. There was no possibility of a peaceful resolution. But this could be left for later. Lu Shu was not afraid of the enemy, but they had to find the spies on Earth. He felt that since the slave owners had planned and created such an uproar on Earth, it was definitely not based on the understanding of the universe towards the Earth. An organization had definitely established a relationship with the universe to carry out this plan. Just as Lu Shu had thought, the world did not lack ambitious people. The operations of the collection of gods had returned to normal. Since the school festival, they were like an events company. They organized activities, set off fireworks, and provided support. Now, the collection of gods had returned to their normal business. Kageyama Hiroshu had disappeared. More accurately, Lu Shu had disappeared. He had returned to China. But even Motegi Toshimitsu did not expect that one day, when she walked past the headquarters, she suddenly heard some members discussing that these activities were rather interesting. It was much more meaningful than fighting and killing. The jingoists in the collection of gods had been eliminated. Most of the members were former conservatives, but many of them were new members that had been recruited from youth groups. At first, they had thought that the collection of gods only fought and killed. These activities seemed to have unlocked some new skills. The practitioner organizations were not simply entities that brought danger to the world. For example, the strange organization on Sardinia devoted themselves to artistic performances. The collection of gods was still the collection of gods, but it was no longer living in a shadow. Everyone knew that Sakurai Yako was not a god. She was a normal person. Although this was hard to accept, once this fact was accepted, it seemed quite good. The battle at Hakodate, including the lightning that flashed in the sky, was no secret. Many people had taken pictures. Out of these pictures, 2 pictures were very famous. They had been taken by the same professional photographer. When he saw the thunderclouds, he did not panic like ordinary people. Instead, he was excited. This was a common characteristic among many professional photographers. They were only concerned about whether they would be able to capture the most exciting moments. The first picture was of Lu Shu flying towards the sea. A thunderbolt flashed in the thunderclouds, lighting up Lu Shu's back. Even the photographer was shocked. The thunderclouds in the sky represented the willpower of the world, while the back represented the willpower of humans to pursue the way of Tao. In the second picture, the thunderclouds had disappeared. The young man had broken through the thunderclouds and was standing in the sky. Around Lu Shu were the dispersed thunderclouds. There was a large space between Lu Shu and the clouds. It was as if the clouds were avoiding Lu Shu as well. Above Lu Shu's head were brilliant stars. When the second picture was posted, there was a lot of debate. It was taken at a distance, so Lu Shu's face was not clear. But everyone felt that the lightning was not right. It was clearly in the middle of the night or at dawn, but the starlight that lit up Lu Shu's face made it seem like it was in the afternoon. Some raised doubts that the effects of editing were too obvious, but the photographer felt that he had been treated unfairly. It was normal for pictures to be edited, but he had not edited in the starlight. Soon after, someone who had observed the sky that night proved that on the night when the thunderclouds appeared, the sky was filled with stars. It was much brighter than before. It had actually happened. Even now, no one knew who had advanced. Only Motegi Toshimitsu had made a guess. Then, there was a secret meeting between the Heavenly Network and the Collection of Gods. Although the Collection of Gods did not know the meeting agenda, many people knew who would be present. At this moment, everyone was shocked. The bosses of the Heavenly Network had come. This meant that the person who had advanced to the Master Realm was probably a Heavenly King. In the past, everyone thought that Kageyama Hiroshu was Kageyama Hiroshu. No one gave it much thought. But when everyone put this, Sakurai Yako's sudden adoration, previous records of Heavenly Kings, and the disappearance of Kageyama Hiroshu together, they suddenly realized, damn. This was probably everyone's first reaction when they guessed the truth. Lu Shu was already a legend in Japan. After he became the 9th Heavenly King, the secrets of the Jingoists in the Collection of Gods were slowly revealed. This was a young man who had killed his way through the Collection of Gods. He had almost taken the leader of the Collection of Gods away as well. This was strange. When people thought about this, they were not angry. Instead, they felt confident. They had a master to rely on. For a period of time, Lu Shu had become like a god to the young people in Japan. An animation company who was developing characters took Lu Shu as their protagonist. It seemed not bad. The Collection of Gods did not panic, but the other organizations started to panic. How did the Heavenly Network nurture masters so quickly? They had been worried about the slave owners, but just as the problem of the slave owners had been solved, another master had emerged. Earlier, a few organizations from Southeast Asia had contacted Hao Jichao. Although the slave owners had gone to the Collection of Gods, they would still return in the future. Back then, Hao Jichao told them that the slave owners would not return. The organizations did not understand. Why? The Collection of Gods would not be able to defeat these slave owners. Now, the truth had been revealed. It would have been better if you had said that the 9th Heavenly King had gone there. What was this? We were scared to death? But no one knew what these slave owners wanted to do. The entire world was nervous because of the slave owners. Reality had shown them that the opening of the space pathway might result in the elimination of mankind. At that moment, the Weiwu army was doing their best to learn the cultures on Earth. This was an order from Lu Shu. They were also interested in this. Forcing them to adjust to the cultures on Earth was not feasible. Lu Shu had discussed with Zhong Yutong that they had to guide them using their interest. How would they do so? As the chief manager of the Heavenly Network, Zhong Yutong had racked his brains thinking of ways to do so. After all, the Weiwu army was very strong. If they were able to integrate, it would be equivalent to having over 5,000 more Heavenly Kings in the Heavenly Network. Zhong Yutong had not thought of any good ideas, until he saw Li Haitan and the rest wolfing down food in the canteen.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.